Hey guys, it's M, and today we're going to be talking about What If Jagi Was Good Part 3. I'm sure many of you are aware of what this is, given it's one of my most popular series, so I don't think it needs much of an introduction. But this one is pretty much going to be an immediate follow-up to where the last video ended off. If you guys haven't seen it or don't really remember what happened, I 100% think you should rewatch it or watch it for your first time before watching this video. As unlike part 1 where it was kind of optional to rewatch it before part 2, this time I'm going to be referring to a lot of events that happened in the previous part. With all that out of the way, let's conclude the What If Jagi Was Good trilogy. Our story starts off around when the peace period after Raoh's death starts to wear off. While Ken and Shosa are out in their village, Jagi and Toh stayed behind at the last Nanto General's tower and vowed to keep the city a safe haven and defend it from bandits and outlaws. Both Jagi and Toh are relaxing when he hears one of the villagers outside talking about a raid on a village not far from where they are. They also go on to say the man of 7 scars ended up there, but doesn't seem to want to fight anymore, and the people may be in danger. Jagi seems surprised that the people are doubting Ken, but notes he hasn't heard anything about his younger brother since Raoh's death. Out of curiosity and somewhat concerned, he walks out and asks the villager where the village Ken's at is. After getting the information, he then waves to Toh before heading out to the small village on his bike. As he drives past, he sees a boy go past him on horseback. He doesn't think too much of it until he slowly notices that horse was Raoh's, and he pauses and stares at the boy, shocked before rushing towards Ken, concerned why anybody would be riding Kaioh. He reaches the town and the people seem weary, but recognize him and let him in. He immediately asks where Ken is, and one of the villagers points him in the direction of a broken man, simply sitting on a stump with a blank expression on his face. Jagi walks up to Ken and asks what's going on and why he saw someone riding Kaioh as he drove past, and Ken weakly responds saying that he went to go fight the bandits by himself. Jagi stares shocked and grabs Ken by his rags, shouting at him for allowing some ordinary person to go out by themselves and fight a horde of bandits that Ken could kill alone. Ken says he can't fight anymore as his fists are weak after everyone he's lost. Jagi stops and stares at his brother for a moment before punching him, saying that he got his fist sealed, something that he previously would have fought Ken to the death for, just for his younger brother's sake. So if he doesn't want to be the savior anymore, then what was the point of that sacrifice? Ken's eyes seem to widen as he forgot everything Jagi legitimately sacrificed for him back at the Nanto Tower. Jagi then begins shouting that even Toki and Raoh died so Ken could save the wasteland, and the fact that he's letting innocents die because he feels weak is one of the most pathetic things Ken could do. Jagi then starts to walk off, but then Ken stands with a familiar look in his eye, the same look that he held back in the past. He tells Jagi that he's right and they have to hurry if they want a chance of saving Shosa. Jagi still seems irritated, but says if they take his bike they might make it in time. The two hurry off in the direction Shosa went, and when they reach, they see him barely able to fight back against the goons. Ken jumps off of the bike and then begins fighting them off, and Jagi takes out his shotgun and begins shooting the bandits away from Shosa. The two make quick work of every bandit in the base, and Shosa and Kaioh are heavily injured but still alive. Jagi hands Shosa to Ken, who heals him, and while he's doing that, Jagi gets curious and tries to jump on Kaioh, who immediately bucks him off and knocks him to the ground. Ken smiles at his brother, thanking him for reminding him what he fought for. Jagi sighs and laughs, stating that Ken would be useless without him. Shosa wakes up and asks who the masked man is, and Ken responds with the second remaining brother of Kaioh, Jagi. The three then head back to town, with Shosa seemingly interested in Jagi, non-stop asking him questions along the way while Ken simply remains silent. Jagi interrupts Shosa's barrage of questions, asking if Ken's seen Rin or Bat since Raoh's passing. Ken says he was trying to get away from his past to help recover from the loss of Yuria. Jagi pauses, seemingly unaware of Yuria's passing, but Ken interrupts the silence asking if Rin and Bat are okay. Jagi goes on to say he hasn't seen them for a year or two, but after Ken disappeared, the two kids lived with him and Toh for a while before joining the Kaioh army with Rihaku, and he hasn't seen them since, assuming that they had went to find Ken or at least were staying with him. Ken shakes his head saying that he hasn't seen them, and Jagi says he hopes that they're doing well. After dropping Shosa back off at the town, the two brothers continue walking and talking, with Jagi staying around for a day or two before Ken says that he'll go to a nearby supply line for Shosa since he's still somewhat recovering, with Jagi tagging along for the journey. As they reach and grab the supplies from the town, they see a nearby wanted sign with Rin and Bat on the wall. Both Ken and Jagi look shocked and asked why the two are wanted. The villagers say they don't know why, but someone with an American getup came by not too long ago and seemed really interested in those bounties. Ken and Jagi look concerned, and as Ken heads back to Shosa's village, Jagi asks around town to see if anyone knows where Rin and Bat left off to. A shady villager tells Jagi that he saw both of them heading to some town north of where they are right now, and Jagi hops on his bike and immediately starts heading towards them. As he closes in, he sees a bunch of fighting going on in the distance. He slowly drifts into the town and a huge man holding a whip approaches in front of him, twitching. reaching. Jagi notes that it looks like his pressure points had been hit before the man violently explodes in front of him. Jagi rushes in past the man, concerned for Rin and Bat, and as he rushes into the building, he sees them fighting off an entire horde of goons by themselves. Jagi begins pushing past everyone to go help the duo, but as he sees a man next to him punch his way past all of the goons. Everyone seems to pause as the man dressed in an American attire introduces himself as Ein, and says that he'll claim the bounty on both of their heads. Both Rin and Bat take fighting stances, but Ein says Bat's a coward for letting a woman fight for him. Bat steps in front of Rin and the two prepare to have a one-on-one fight, but as they do, they hear a shotgun click and Ein feels a muzzle to the back of his head. Jagi commands Ein to kneel and he does. Bat and Rin see Jagi and seem ecstatic, calling him Uncle Jagi. Jagi smirks at the both of them but then looks back down at the bounty hunter, asking what scum like him has to live for. Ein says he has a daughter waiting at home for him and he immediately spins around, which makes Jagi miss his shot on Ein's head. Ein punches the gun out of Jagi's hands, but Bat catches it before pressing a pressure point on Ein's back, saying that if he wants to live, he's going to have to help them get out of this room. Ein seems to feel pain and takes a fighting stance, asking what Bat did to him. He doesn't respond and then the four fight their way out of the army of goons. When they make it outside, Ein falls on one knee from the pain and Bat hits the same pressure point and Ein regains control of his body again, falling to the floor exhausted. Rin, Bat, and Jagi begin talking happily with Ein looking confused. He interrupts their convo asking why they spared him and who they are. Bat says that he's part of the Hukdo army and they fight for a better future, and that if Ein has a daughter, she doesn't deserve to grow up without a father. Ein seems stunned by this statement, but while they're talking, Ken appears, looking at both Rin and Bat all grown up. The two seem overcome by emotions and immediately hug him, but Jagi smugly stating that Ken's the only person who could show up late and still get nothing but love. Ein gets up and starts moving away. Jagi looks over at him and asks where he's going, and Ein says home. Jagi sighs, saying that his brother's kindness must be rubbing off on him before shooing Ein away. After a bit of conversation, they tell Ken and Jagi about how they've been saving towns from bandits, and that Jagi taught them Hukdo a while back. Ken looks confused on why Jagi would do such a thing, but Jagi says since he couldn't use it, he might as well teach the kids how to use it so they can at least fend for themselves. Rin seems to suddenly fall on the ground and everyone looks towards her concerned, and Ken asks what's wrong. Bat explains Rin's been having random headaches for a while now since they've heard of a random threat not far from them, the Celestial Emperor's army. Ken and Jagi look concerned and agree to follow Rin and Bat back to Rihaku. When they reach, they exchange pleasantries and then ask Rihaku who the Celestial Army are. Rihaku says he doesn't yet know their location, but someone known as Falco the Gold has been randomly attacking cities and seemingly trying to erase the roots of Nanto and Hukdo, destroying their statues and killing their villagers. The two say they'll help out whenever they find out where the Celestial Army is, and Rihaku thanks the both of them. A few days pass with nothing of note happening until a few members of the Hukdo Army said that they found the general area of the fortress according to reports. Rin, Bat, Ken, and Jagi each split up to scope out the area directly, with Jagi looking for a high ground on a mountain to look down across the land. He reaches a cliff and he sees a cooking pot and a tent on top of the cliff. Jagi cautiously looks around until he's tackled unexpectedly. He looks up to see Ein holding a fist above his face. Ein seems surprised that Jagi's there and asks why he is while he's getting off. Jagi seems irritated but says he's looking for some army he's heard of nearby. Ein scratches his head and then motions for Jagi to follow him. The two walk a bit higher up the cliffside and Ein points down to a fortress a bit away from where they are. Ein says he saw it but didn't know what it was. Jagi's shocked and somewhat irritated they couldn't see this big fortress earlier, but then he gets an idea. He pulls out an explosive charge and Ein looks at him surprised, asking what he plans on doing with that. Jagi says that the army in the fortress has been randomly killing innocent civilians, and if he can set up a little surprise for them before the Hukdo army raid makes it here, it'll make things a lot easier. Ein asks if it's all to make that better future Bat told them about. Jagi pauses for a moment and says yes, and Ein agrees to come with him. The two sneak down to the fortress and begin setting charges around the entire structure. As they prepare to leave, a group of guards stumbles upon them and asks what they're doing. Jagi says they just came by to check out the place, but the guards don't buy it and attack the pair. Jagi raises his shotgun and Ein takes a fighting stance as the two prepare to fend off the lackeys. Meanwhile, Rin, Bat, and Ken run into Solia, who says that he's on patrol duty and that he's heard of the Hukdo army. Ken prepares to fight Solia, but Rin pushes both him and Bat to the side, saying she wants to show Ken her Hukdo. Solia and Rin fight with it actually being somewhat of a struggle, but with her coming out on top. Rin smiles at both Ken and Bat, and Ken notices how far she's come from the defenseless girl she used to be. Jagi and I manage to beat back all the forces and sit down tired, surrounded by bodies of the Celestial Emperor's army. But as they're panting, they see a man walk towards them from the fortress, the man known as Falco the Gold. Jagi looks over at the man and feels that he's not any kind of ordinary man. him. Ein takes a fighting stance to prepare, and as Falco enters his and prepares to fight the two of them, Jagi throws down a smoke bomb, grabs Ein, and begins running back to the Hukto's army's base. Ein seems confused by what's happening, and Jagi says something about that man rubs him the wrong way. Both Jagi and Ein arrive at the same time Koniwrinn and Bat do. Jagi begins telling them about the fort they saw and described the man they almost fought. Rihaku says that was definitely Falco and that it was wise for both of them to run, as he most likely would have killed both of them. They all agree that they'll attack the base tomorrow, but before the day ends, Ein tells Jagi and Bat about two Nanto masters remaining that he sent to prison, the Harm brothers. This pretty much goes the same way it does in the main story, with the three getting the brothers out without much of a hitch. At night, Ren begins feeling ill and she says that she thinks someone inside the fortress is crying out to be saved. Ken and Bat notice this and say that they'll see who's inside. The next day comes and the Hukto army swarms the base, and before they reach the gates, Jagi uses the explosives he planted before to open up the gate and allow everyone to immediately enter the fortress. Jacko seems terrified as he doesn't even know who's attacking him. Ein, Bat, the Harm Bros, and Jagi sneak inside while Ren and Ken deal with the goons outside, and eventually Ken fights Falco similar to how he does in the anime. The group ends up in a similar situation with everyone falling down into the cave with Rui, except Jagi, who felt paranoid and felt that they were walking into a trap and went somewhere else instead. He shoots Jacko's son and continues walking around the fortress to find Jacko himself. He finds him on top of the fort telling his men to aim down at both Ken and Falco. Jagi laughs and all the men turn around as Jagi pulls out a match along with some gasoline. He lights the machines on fire and they begin exploding, hurling Jacko off of the cliff, and the rest of his goons burn to death while Jagi cackles at them for trying to cheat. Ken and Falco set aside their differences and Ren feels a massive headache coming on. The two men look at her and then suddenly a wall in the fortress bursts open with water and they see the main group come flooding out of the building. Instead of Ein being the injured one of the Harn brothers caught the rock Ein caught in the manga, and instead of Ein hurting himself to punch down on the rock, the other brother headbutted down. So both brothers are injured, but neither fatally. The group then easily locates the injured Jacko. Falco kills him as normal, but as in the anime, Jacko's son survives, but instead of taking Rin, he manages to grab Rui and escape to Asura. Falco almost immediately wants to rush after her, but collapses from his fight with Ken. The group then takes Falco to the Hukto army base to recover. As expected though, as in the canon, the next day Falco sneaks off to go to Asura, and the group sets out to go look for him. After a bit of searching, they find Akashachi, and after he explains the dangers of Asura, he says Ken should go alone and the others should just hold their ground to make sure no more bandits rise into power while he's gone. Ren, Jagi, and Bat protest, but Ken states his words are final and he leaves to Asura with Akashachi. When everyone heads back to base, Jagi devises a plan in the middle of the night to head to Asura too. Ren, Bat, and Ein happen to see him and ask what he's doing. He says he found a map to Asura and he's making a raft strong enough to make the journey. Ein says that Ken's right and he should go alone as he's far stronger than all of them combined, but Ren and Bat say they can't just leave Ken again. And Jagi says he can't let his younger brother go somewhere that dangerous alone, since he's pretty much one of the only two family members Jagi has left. Ein stays quiet for a moment, but then he says him and the Harm Bros will watch over the Hukto army while they're gone. Ren and Bat thank him and they help Jagi fix his raft, and after a few nights of work they all head to Asura together. While Ken's off fighting Han, the group lands on Asura's shores and begins searching for him. They run into a few Shuras, but Ren and Bat manage to fight them off. After quite a few Shura attacks, the group hunkers down to recover. As they are, they feel the earth is shaking around them. Bat peeks out to see a man on a horse with evil energy emitting from his body. The man appears to see Bat and approaches their camp, and as he does, Bat stands in front of the camp and asks the man who he is. Kaioh laughs, saying he must be new to Asura if he doesn't know who the mighty Kaioh is. As Bat prepares to fight the man, Ren tells Jagi to stay inside and stands next to Bat. Kaioh's surprised to see her and senses that she's the Celestial Emperor like in the show. He begins laughing and says he doesn't know how she escaped Han, but she won't escape him. The two attack him and he effortlessly defeats the both of them, berating Bat for letting a woman help him in a fight. As Kaioh prepares to take the unconscious Ren back to his base, Jagi jumps out and shoots Kaioh's helmet off with a shotgun. Jagi stands in shock, asking how Rao survived his final fight with Ken. Kaioh laughs, saying that his weak brother must have perished, but asks who Jagi is. Jagi doesn't respond and simply asks for Kaioh to let Rin go. Kaioh seems annoyed that someone using a weapon is even questioning him, and he gets off his horse preparing to fight. As Jagi sees this, he enters Muso Tensei to intimidate Kaioh, as even though Rao steeled his fist, he can still use MT to scare people away from fighting him. Jagi goes on to explain that this is Hukto Shinken's ultimate technique, and nothing Kaioh could do now would even be able to hit him. Kaioh asks if Jagi's really part of the main Hukto lineage, and Jagi attempts to scare Kaioh away, saying he is, but he doubts some random martial artist even knows what Hukto truly is. Kaioh lets out a loud laugh, and evil energy surrounds his entire body. Jagi can feel his power and staggers back for a moment before charging at Kaioh to potentially scare him. But as he rushes in, he suddenly begins levitating off the ground and is forced out of MT. Kaioh slowly walks towards the helpless Jagi and begins beating him down, taunting him for the weakness of the main Hukto lineage and says that they could never defeat Hukto Ryukin. After a few moments of beating Jagi, Kaioh drops his Onryu field and stares over the unconscious man, saying that he senses some Hukto Ryukin potential in him. Kaioh then takes Ren and Jagi and leaves Bat barely conscious on the ground. While Han is defeated defeated, Ken's group, now with Rui, moves on across the wasteland. They stumble upon Bat, who's limping, heavily injured. Ken berates Bat for coming, but Bat says a man named Kaioh has taken both Rin and Jagi. After Ken heals Bat, they set off to go find Kaioh, but Shachi says they aren't strong enough to fight him yet. Ken says that he can't lose the last brother of Hokuto Shinken he has left and sets out to fight Kaioh directly. When Jagi and Rin come to, Jagi's pinned to a wall and so is Rin. Kaioh walks up to Jagi and asks who he is. Jagi doesn't speak, but Kaioh walks up to him and strikes a pressure point. He notices that Jagi's fists are sealed and that he physically can't use Hokuto anymore. Kaioh laughs, calling Jagi bold for even attempting to attack him with no power. He then hits a pressure point at Jagi's head and makes him speak about his past. Kaioh seems interested that Jagi turned into a good person and asks if he really doesn't want revenge, or is it just that he isn't strong enough. Jagi doesn't answer the question and Kaioh begins laughing, asking if Ken's meant to be some sort of savior, why couldn't he help Jagi save Anna? Jagi gets quiet and Kaioh says that if Jagi helps him, he can unseal his fists and teach him Hokuto Ryuken. Rin shouts at Jagi telling him not to, but Jagi doesn't say anything in response. Kaioh laughs and says that he'll break him eventually, and his new goal is to convert a brother of Hokuto Shinken into Hokuto Ryuken, and that he'll deal with Rin later as he's heard of Kenshiro's arrival in the land of Asura and he's gonna kill him with his own hands. As he heads out, Rin asks Jagi if he's okay and Jagi begins jerking around to shake something out of his sleeve. A dart falls into his mouth and he spits it at one of Rin's cuffs, breaking it. She easily breaks the other on his own, then goes about freeing Jagi. She says the both of them should run to Ken's aid, but Jagi says he'd be dead weight to her if more Shuras attacked them. She tries to reason with him, but he refuses, but says she better put his Hokuto to good use. As she heads out to Asura looking for Ken, Jagi looks around for ways to trap the fort before Kaioh gets back. A while later, after Kaioh defeats the main group and he steps inside of his fortress, it explodes, with Jagi jumping from the top of it and laughing, saying Kaioh may be strong, but winning is all that matters. Jagi lands on Kaioh's horse and begins wrestling for control of it. And when he does, Kaioh comes out of the rubble and shoots an Onryu Tenha blast that barely misses Jagi, and he flips Kaioh off and heads into the wasteland. The slightly injured Kaioh heads to Sayaka to kill her like he does in the anime, infuriated with the way things seem to be going. Rin manages to link up with the main group and tells them about Jagi's whereabouts. From there, events go about the same until Hyo heads out to get vengeance on Kenshiro. As Jagi's wandering around, he runs into the angry Hyo, who sees the 7 scars on Jagi's chest and jumps to the conclusion that it's Kenshiro. He violently chases after Jagi, who's confused on what's going on and who's chasing him, but continues running while shooting back at Hyo with his gun. Hyo shoots a blast at Jagi's back, which knocks him off his horse. Hyo tries to stomp on Jagi, but he rolls out of the way with his helmet coming off. Hyo notices that this person isn't Kenshiro, but is still so enraged he doesn't seem to care and just seems to be taking out his frustrations on Jagi. Hyo prepares to do Onryu Tenha, but Jagi spits darts in his eyes, and Koryasha appears, slashing across Hyo's chest. Jagi looks confused on who this is, but Koryasha motions for Jagi to run in a certain direction. As he does, Koryasha baits Hyo into following the both of them, and as in the anime, this leads Hyo to the cavern. But when they reach, Hyo manages to blast both of them with a blast that pushes Koryasha away and knocks Jagi on the floor. As he prepares to get up, he turns to see Hyo bringing his fist down towards his face. As Jagi braces for impact, the hand catches Hyo's fist. Jagi and Koryasha seem surprised when they turn to see Kenshiro's here. Ken warns the two of them to step aside, and then Ken and Hyo's fight goes the same way it does in the canon. But towards the end of the fight, instead of Shachi interrupting it, Jagi shoots Hyo in the back, which knocks him over. Shachi then begins berating Jagi for what he's done and disrupting the honor of their fight. And Jagi yells back at him saying honor doesn't matter anymore. Hyo breaks up the two's argument, and as in the show, the brothers reconcile. And Rin and Bat, who are traveling with Ken, hug Jagi as they're surprised he's still alive. As everyone's preparing to leave, Jagi pulls Hyo aside. Hyo tries to apologize for attacking him earlier, but Jagi talks over him and asks if he can unseal his fists. Hyo looks confused for a moment, and Jagi explains he's a Hokuto brother, but Rao sealed his fists in their final encounter. Hyo pauses and says that he's heard it's the successor's duty to seal his brother's fists in the memories of Hokuto. And if he does give Jagi his Hokuto abilities back, Ken will most likely have to deal with him, as is his fate as the successor. Jagi says he knows, but angrily asks if Hyo can do it or not, which Hyo sighs and shakes his head. Jagi then grabs Hyo and shouts at him, asking why he can't, but Hyo shoves Jagi off of him, saying Hokuto Shinken is meant to be the good half of Hokuto, while Hokuto Ryuken is meant to be evil. They don't have any techniques to help heal Jagi's techniques being sealed. Jagi gets irritated by this, but doesn't say anything and storms off to reach the others. Afterwards, like in the canon, the group splits up, with Ken, Hyo, Rin, and Bat traveling one way, and Shachi, Leah, and Jagi going the other way to find the key of unlocking Kenshiro's seals. As in the canon, Kaioh arrives, but he's livid. As Shachi and Jagi are horrified that he appeared, Kaioh says that he's going to erase the 2 people who embarrassed him the most off the face of the earth, which reminds Jagi of what Rao said to him before his fists were sealed. Jagi gets irritated and shoots at Kaioh, who doesn't even flinch from the shot. Kaioh then rushes the both of them, and as in the canon, he uses his horse to take off Shachi's arm. He then jumps off of the horse on top of Jagi and begins punching down on him and laughing, saying that he cost them Rin and Ken cost them Rui, but they're still gonna end up making a child style to surpass even Kaioh's own strength. Jagi gets irritated by this, and as Kaioh's punching him, he manages to get a shot directly on Kaioh's face, which makes him stumble back a bit. Shachi then jumps on Kaioh's back, but as Jagi's preparing another shot, Kaioh punches Jagi so hard the floor breaks, and they all end up falling into the room with the statue. After flinging Shachi off of him, Kaioh approaches the statue, and as he touches it like in the canon, it harms him. As Kaioh goes to shoot a blast at the statue, Jagi yells for him to stop. Kaioh turns around smiling, but both Shachi and Kaioh notice Jagi hit a pressure point in his thighs. Kaioh laughs again and says Jagi's weak for needing to hit his Sekatsu, which we know is the pressure point Toki used against Rao. Jagi seems angry and says that no one is going to humiliate him the same way Rao did, and he's not going to let anyone hurt Rin. He then rushes in at Kaioh, who's laughing at Jagi while easily taking his hits. In Kaioh's laughter, he ends up saying that even at full strength, Jagi's nothing but an insect to him. Shachi then jumps in the fight, and the two manage to stall Kaioh, but they aren't doing much damage to him at all. After a few moments of the two trying to fend him off, Shachi ends up getting brutalized like he does in the canon, and Kaioh lifts Jagi by the throat. He tells Jagi that his Hakuto is sloppy, and even using his Sekatsu, it couldn't have boosted him enough to compare. As Kaioh prepares to kill Jagi, Shachi gets up possessed by the statue's power, and while Kaioh's distracted, Jagi spits darts in his eyes and then slashes Kaioh's stomach with Nanto, saying it doesn't matter if he can't hit Kaioh's pressure points. Both the possessed Shachi and Jagi rush Kaioh, and he seems to be falling back a bit. Shachi manages to get Kaioh in the same headlock he does in the manga, and as Kaioh prepares to throw him off, Jagi full force tackles Kaioh, which knocks him backwards into the statue, making him start to bleed. Jagi looks up at Kaioh, who has nothing but rage in his eyes, saying it's not about who's stronger, it's just about who wins. In a fit of rage, Kaioh shoots energy off him, which flings both Shachi and Jagi off of him, but he's gravely injured. He goes to retreat, but as he does, Jagi jumps on his back. Kaioh in his enraged state pulls Jagi off of his back and slams him into the ground. Kaioh then lifts his fist to finish Jagi, but the damage from the statue makes his arm bleed. Jagi laughs while Kaioh retreats angrily. Ken arrives with Rin and Bat not too long afterwards, and they see Leah coddling the corpse of Shachi, along with Jagi, either dead or unconscious, not far away from him. Rin and Bat run up to Jagi, and Ken looks away reluctantly, saying that their sacrifices won't be in vain as he touches the statue to unseal his points. A few moments later, after Ken's done with the statue, Jagi weakly manages to mutter out Ken's name. Ken runs over to Jagi, and Jagi grabs Ken by the shoulders, saying that he and Shachi managed to heavily injure Kaioh, so he couldn't have gone far. Ken notices the marks on Jagi's thighs and notices that he hit his Sekatsu in order to fight Kaioh. He then looks at the mark and notices Jagi hit the wrong point, and it's possible for him to survive. Ken then stands up and tells Rin and Bat to watch over Jagi, and he's going to make sure that Kaioh pays for what he's done and heads off. The fight goes similar to how it does in the canon, but Ken almost effortlessly deals with Kaioh due to the injuries he sustained from both Jagi and Shachi. Bat, Rin, Hyo, and Jagi appear to see Kaioh in his last moments, and just as in the canon, Hyo and Kaioh die together. When it's all over and they're heading back to the capital wasteland on the boat Jagi made to get there, he hobbles next to Kenshiro and asks how he managed to survive hitting the same pressure point that slowly killed their brother. Ken says that Jagi hit the pressure point wrong, and that what he did didn't give him as much strength as Toki managed to get, but given that when it ran out, it didn't kill him. He then goes on to say he's still surprised that he got that close from replicating that move from seeing Toki do it once. Jagi pauses and then sighs in embarrassment. Ken says even if he had gone full power, he most likely still wouldn't have been able to beat Kaioh, so his failure might have saved his life.
After a brief pause, Jagi asks Ken if he will attempt to seal his memories now that his fists have been unsealed. Ken pauses and then responds, saying he doesn't see a reason to as long as Jagi accepts Ken as the successor. Jagi pauses and laughs before saying that he never thought he'd say it, but he agrees Kenshiro's the chosen successor, and says even if his Hakuto stays, he doesn't imagine he'd have to use it much after learning how to fight so long without it. Ken then sticks out his hand. Jagi then shakes Ken's hand and both of the brothers smile as land comes into view.
They make it back to the Hakuto army and they all celebrate. As they are, Jagi silently sneaks away in the commotion, but Ken notices this and asks where he's headed. Jagi says that he came to help his brother again, but now that they're done and he indirectly got his revenge against Raoh, he isn't really needed anymore, so he'll be heading back to the Nanto General's village to protect it like he used to. Jagi then points out that Ken isn't really the celebrating type either and asks where he's gonna go after all this. Ken says he's simply going to wander the waste, and Jagi laughs, saying that's not really surprising that his brother doesn't have an end goal in mind. The two brothers then shake hands and head their separate ways, with Jagi heading back towards his home and Ken going his own way. A month or so later, while Jagi and Toa are peacefully at home, they hear a knock on their door. Jagi answers and sees Ken at the door with a boy. Jagi asks what Ken wants, and Ken says he wants Jagi to do him a final favor, taking care of Ryu since he can't provide a safe home for him. Jagi seems confused and asks who the child is since it doesn't look like Ken or Yuria, and Ken says it's Raoh's son. Jagi pauses baffled, asking who would have had a child with Raoh. Ken ignores this and asks Jagi the question again. Jagi sighs and asks Ken why he can't take care of his own tagalongs. After a moment of silence and a deep sigh, Jagi agrees to take care of Ryu and Ken thanks him. As Ken gets on Kokuo, Jagi asks asks if it's the last time he'll have to help his good-for-nothing successor brother. Ken smiles and nods, saying it'll most likely be the last time they see each other for a while, and he sincerely thanks Jagi for everything he's done for him. Jagi laughs and says it's always up to the older brother to save the younger one. Ken then says Jagi's truly come a long way, and that Ryukin would be proud of him. Jagi goes quiet for a moment and says that it took him long enough to make that old man proud. Ken then heads off, and both Ryu and Jagi wave goodbye to him before heading inside. Jagi then explains the entire situation to Toe, and she seems excited to raise a kid. She lifts Ryu up and the two begin smiling. Jagi looks at Toe's face and it reminds him a lot of Anna. Jagi then smiles, proud of how far he's come. And after that, the three live the rest of their lives in peace. With Kenshiro going off to do the Asam and Baron arcs as they were in the canon, and given Rin didn't get her pressure point hit by Kaioh, the Borge arc doesn't happen and both Rin and Bat settle down in the Maya. And with all this brings the What If Jagi Was Good trilogy to an end. That was quite the journey. I sure didn't expect this to become some kind of series when I first made it, but here we are. I'm happy I got to write out this entire what if scenario for my favorite character, and I'm happy all of you enjoyed it enough to follow it to the very end. I can't wait to hear what you guys think about this in the comments, and I've been out, and I am out.